This is officially the worst wildfire season in the state's modern history. As of this week, nearly 2 million acres have burned. That number has already surpassed the previous all-time record set just 2 years ago in 2024. And the season isn't even over. There are still roughly 2 more months of fire risk ahead. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how bad 2026 really is, how it compares to every major fire season this decade, and why officials are calling this the toughest year Oregon has faced in modern memory. Let's start with the numbers as of early August 2026, because they are staggering. According to the Oregon Department of Forestry and the Northwest Coordination Center, the state has now burned close to 2 million acres this year alone. To put that in perspective, that's larger than the entire state of Delaware. As of the most recent daily report, Oregon had around 55 active wildfires burning at the same time, covering roughly 1.68 million acres of land. The state's national preparedness level sits at 5 out of 5, the highest level that exists, meaning firefighting resources across the entire country are being stretched thin to respond. Roughly 8,900 personnel are currently assigned to fires across Oregon. SOARs, and that's FOWFires, so that's support crews, aircraft teams, and incident management specialists working simultaneously across the state. And this week, a red flag warning has been in effect across central and eastern Oregon, meaning westerly winds gusting up to 30 miles per hour combined with humidity as low as 11% are creating textbook conditions for explosive fire growth. Let's talk about the individual fires driving these numbers, because several of them are historic in their own right. The largest fire complex of the season has burned in the range of 320,000 to 340,000 acres on its own, an area so large it would qualify as one of the biggest wildfires in Oregon's recorded history, all by itself. Containment on that fire has hovered between 53 and 62%, depending on the day, meaning firefighters have made real progress, but it is still far from fully contained. Another major complex near Warm Springs has burned close to 200,000 acres and is now around 98% contained, a sign that even the biggest fires can eventually be brought under control with enough time and resources. Further south, a cluster of fires, including ones with names like Henry, Coyote, and Shingle, have burned tens of thousands of acres combined, ranging from roughly 89 to 97% containment as of the first week of August. And it's not just Oregon. Just across the border, eastern Washington has been fighting its own historic fire emergency, with active fires spanning over 260,000 acres, forcing the governor to declare a statewide emergency and thousands of residents to evacuate. Now, here's where it gets really interesting, because the way 2026 is unfolding is genuinely unusual, and the story isn't as simple as worst year ever. Let's go year by year so you can see the pattern for yourself. In 2021, Oregon recorded around 1,660 individual fires, burning a combined total of roughly 827,000 acres. In 2022, the number of fires climbed to nearly 2,000, but total acreage actually dropped to about 437,000 acres. 2023 was a comparatively quiet year. Just under 260,000 acres burned across the entire state, one of the calmest seasons in recent memory. Then came 2024, the year that shattered every previous record. Over 2,000 fires burned a combined 1.9 million acres, making it at the time the most destructive wildfire season in Oregon's modern history. 2025 was still a serious season, with total acreage landing around 338,000 acres and roughly 205 structures destroyed, but nowhere near the scale of 2024. And now 2026. As of the most recent reporting, Oregon has already burned close to 2 million acres, which means this season has now technically overtaken 2024's full season total, and there are still weeks left before fire season typically winds down in late September or October. Here's the twist that makes this season so strange. Earlier in the summer, official large fire tracking data showed Oregon had roughly 42 large fires, nearly double the number recorded at the same point in 2024. But at that stage, those fires had actually burned about 176,000 fewer acres than 2024's fires had by the same date. In other words, 2026 didn't start out burning more land than 2024. It started out with more fires spread across more places at once. It was the sheer number of simultaneous large resource-draining fires, not necessarily bigger individual blazes, that made this season so uniquely difficult to manage. Then, through late July and into August, explosive growth on a handful of megafires pushed the season's total acreage past the 2024 mark and into record territory. Let's talk money, because the financial toll of this season is just as jaw-dropping as the acreage. By late July 2026, estimated suppression costs in Oregon had already reached around $90.9 million. Compare that to the same point in 2024, when suppression costs sat at about $76.3 million. That's an increase of more than $34 million in firefighting expenses alone, and that's before accounting for property loss, agricultural damage, tourism impact, or long-term health costs from smoke exposure. Officials with the Oregon Department of Forestry have been direct about why this is happening. It's not that firefighting tactics have changed. It's that crews are responding to an unusually high number of major fires burning at the same time, forcing the state to run multiple incident management teams simultaneously and stretch already limited firefighting resources across a much wider area than usual. So why has 2026 turned into this kind of season? A few factors are converging. First, reduced snowpack. Across recent years, climate patterns have led to earlier and lighter snowmelt in Oregon's mountains, which means the ground and vegetation dry out earlier in the season and stay dry longer, extending the window during which fires can ignite and spread rapidly. Second, over a century of fire suppression across the western United States has allowed fuel loads, dead trees, brush, and undergrowth to build up far beyond historical norms. When a fire does start in these conditions, it has significantly more material to burn, which makes fires larger, hotter, and harder to contain. Third, weather. Red flag warnings, the National Weather Service's way of signaling extreme fire risk, have been issued repeatedly throughout this season across central and eastern Oregon, driven by a recurring combination of high winds, low humidity, and high temperatures. Even fires that firefighters have almost contained can flare up again within hours under these conditions. And finally, ignition sources. During peak fire season from July through September, the majority of new fires in Oregon are sparked by lightning strikes, while fires earlier and later in the season tend to be linked to human activity. This year has seen both, a mix of lightning-caused megafires in remote wilderness areas and human-caused ignitions closer to populated regions. Behind every one of these numbers is a real community. Evacuation orders have hit multiple counties across Oregon this season, including areas around Jefferson County where a fast-moving, wind-driven fire forced Level 3 go-now evacuation orders for residents near Metolius, with the town itself placed under a precautionary B-set order. In the town of Warm Springs, one of the season's largest fire complexes has repeatedly threatened homes and infrastructure, forcing residents to live under the constant possibility of evacuation for weeks at a time. Across the border in Washington, entire neighborhoods in Spokane and Stevens counties have been forced to evacuate, with hundreds of structures destroyed and a statewide emergency declared by the governor. And let's not forget the invisible toll, smoke. When fires burn at this scale across this many counties simultaneously, air quality plummets across huge portions of the state, affecting people who live hundreds of miles away from the nearest flame. Respiratory health warnings have been a near constant presence throughout this season for residents across central and eastern Oregon. So where does this season go from here? Fire officials are cautiously optimistic on one front. The rate of new acreage burned has started to slow in early August, even after a significant wind event pushed several fires to grow rapidly at the start of the month. Containment percentages on the season's largest complexes have been climbing, some now sitting above 95 or even 98% contained. But the season isn't over. Oregon's fire season typically doesn't wind down until the first sustained rains arrive, usually in late September, which means there are still several weeks, potentially 2 more months, during which new fires could ignite and existing ones could flare back up. Given that 2026 has already broken the all-time acreage record with that much time still remaining, officials aren't ruling out further growth before the season is declared over. So here's where that leaves us. Oregon has already burned more land in 2026 than in any other year on record, surpassing even the historic 2024 season, while facing nearly double the number of simultaneous large fires, tens of millions of dollars in extra suppression costs, and firefighting resources stretched thinner than they've ever been in modern memory. And the season still has weeks left to run. If you found these numbers as staggering as I did, make sure to subscribe, because I'll be tracking this story as the season develops and posting updates the moment official containment numbers and final season totals are released. Drop a comment letting me know which fire complex you want me to cover in more depth next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.